Now, across these next two sessions, we'll first look at how Europe is shaping new global standards, and then the focus will shift to one of the foundations of any sovereign space power, which is autonomous access to space. And to introduce and moderate these next two sessions, I would like to invite on stage the Head of Defense, Space and Security Program at IAI, Mr. Alessandro Marrone. Alessandro.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm proud and honored to be here, also because my institute, Istituto Affari Internazionali, which is the leading Italian think tank on space, is a scientific partner of this conference, and therefore I'm more than happy to be here. Let me call on stage the great lineup of speakers we have for this panel, titled Building the EU Space Act for Safety, Sustainability and Sovereignty. So the speakers are Elena Donazzan, Vice Chair, ITRE Committee, European Parliament, and Rapporteur for the EU Space Act. Elena, welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
I think there, it's the second one, there. Yep. Ekaterini Kavvada, Director for Secure and Connected Space, DG DEFIS, European Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Josef Kaspar, Chair, Association of European Space Research Establishment. Good afternoon, Josef. Welcome.
Where is the seat for me?
Last one. Under your picture, actually. So, as you already know, the Space Act is an important novelty in terms of both European space policy and EU regulation. Proposed by the European Commission in 2025, is being negotiated with the Council and the Parliament. And a plurality of national views and perspectives are on the table. By the way, my colleagues at IAI published last October a paper on Italian perspective, which reflects the perception of most Italian stakeholders. So if you're curious, you can Google Carolina Muti, Andrea Grillo, and Jan, you will easily find it. I beg your pardon for this brief advertisement, and without further ado, I move forward with the first round of questions. So each speaker will have 4 minutes to answer to my question, and let's be on time as Ariane and Vega launchers, or even more. Honorable Donazzan, on the Space Act, negotiations are ongoing, and the question is, how can common rules be introduced by ensuring legal clarity, by avoiding duplication with national frameworks and operational reality, and perhaps through a phased approach? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and let me thanks for the invitation, because it is the second time that I come here, and now is a very different time, because this is the year, as we know, in which we can approve, when we are talking about, we can approve the Space Act. That is one of the most important laws in this mandate, but also for European economy and the way to stay altogether. So, the first thing I can answer to you is what I heard from the beginning of this conference, because everyone has spoken by this stage has underlined that the risk is to have duplication, to have overlaps, and to face too much bureaucratic burden as the economy and the companies and the institution can afford. So the first problem for us and for me as a rapporteur is to write something that could be clearer as possible. I have a very strong relation with the Commission, and we need to have a suggestion from the world that is facing this challenge with us. But the Space Act now has to be simpler as possible. What's the meaning of simplification? Is to harmonize the law, the national law, because 13 countries as a law, with different, something is very good, something is clearer than the proposal of the Commission. So we have to harmonize the law, because we have to take into account what the national agencies, also in the first panel today, has underlined the cooperation. So the second point is how governance has been drafted, because the cooperation between member states and agencies are very important, and the important role of ESA, because ESA has a role that takes into account all the member states, but all, we have also Norwegia, Switzerland, and someone else. So the expertise that ESA has is very important to be taken into account. The last things I can say is that we have to underline the fact that this space tax is conceived as a measure for market. So my focus as a parliament is to underline the importance of the cooperation for companies and industries and services in Europe. But we know that now we are not 100% autonomous. So the third important thing is what's the meaning of equivalence. Now we have different wording about, but what is the direction? The goal to achieve is to have a strong market, our companies to be successful to manage the Space Act, but nowadays we are not autonomous at all. So what is the meaning of a relationship between third countries like mandate, of course? So this is the three main topics I wanted to underline as a rapporteur of Space Act.
Thank you, Elena. Very clear for stressing simplification, governance, and cooperation. So three key words which are my personal takeaway from your first answer. Thank you also for the clear political vision you outlined. Mrs. Kavvada, a few days ago at Davos, the Commission President called for a new Europe, a Europe Inc. So my question is, how the EU Space Act, which you have been working on for a long time, I remember also previous space conference last year, we discussed about that. So how is the EU Space Act inscribed in this, let's say, broader political call for sovereign yet competitive Europe?
Yeah. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. It is true that the last 3 years I'm sitting almost in the same position in order for the 2 previous years to raise expectation about the Space Act. This year I'm really proud and happy that the Space Act is on the table of the co-legislators, so I can openly defend it as much as I can, because I'm a true believer, and I think everybody in this meeting room should be a true believer. President von der Leyen, as you rightly said in Davos, captured in very simple terms what the strategic orientation of the European Union should look like. And here we have just a nexus of 2 major words, 2 major principles. The first one is the competitiveness. And in order to paraphrase their Inc., I have to say that she would like to have a fast-track competitiveness. We don't have time, and we have to rush with all our means. But next to the competitiveness, she added the sovereignty. And this is a real and. We're not talking here competitiveness or sovereignty, or either sovereignty. We need the 2 ingredients of the new era. Where comes the Space Act? I have to say that in the middle of this nexus, we just, in practice, are the Europe Inc. This is what we are trying to do with the Space Act. In simple terms, is to work on the principle of competitiveness in order to provide a single as our rapporteur said, a single legal framework, but also simplified. As European Commission, we give a try. And now it's up to the co-legislators really to help to go towards this simplification of the rules. And definitely global standards coming from Europe to the rest of the world and vice versa. So this is in a nutshell the ambition of the Space Act in the way that the European Commission put it on the table. And even if there is one thinking that we don't need it, we have just to look around us to see the evolution of space, first of all, and the challenges. I know that I repeat myself, but I have to say that in the years to come, the congestion and the congestion will be on a daily agenda. And for us, Europeans, next to these two pathologies, challenges, we have to add a third one, and you mentioned it in the beginning of your intervention, dear Elena, the fragmentation, 13 and many others to come. And even these 13 and the others, they are working in a very asymmetric way. We don't have the same national laws. Unfortunately, we're coming from countries with one article, one law, to others with 100 articles. The European Commission is always much better. We went with 120 articles. But okay, it's time to reduce them. Therefore, we need to act rather than to react behind incidents and difficult situations. But all what we have to do is to propose something which is simple and workable, a toolbox, a competitiveness toolbox for our industry, for the well-established industries, but also for the SMEs and the startups. This is what we have always to keep in mind. And we consider that if we go ahead as Europe with a clear, with a certain, with a transparent legal framework, this will help the business environment, both from the European Union, but also the non-European, because we have partners. We are an open economy, we're not a closed economy. We need to propose state-of-the-art rules. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I have really to reassure everybody that we are not more intelligent than the rest of the world. Number two, we don't have to go ahead with technological solutions well defined. We are technologically neutral. And this is very good recipe for the competitiveness. We need to introduce the proportionality, because one-fits-all rule will never apply in Europe, but also worldwide. We need to come with a package of supportive measures, because nobody, in particular the SMEs and the startups, will be able to implement in the first days, in the first months, without being supported. And last but not least, we have to allow for a reasonable time in order to implement it. So, smart regulation and not an over-regulation. And on the other side, two major elements which I would like to share today in this room. Number one, red lines. We have to respect, religiously I have to say, the competencies of the member states and their prerogatives. We don't have the right to step on their position. They know what they have to do and they know how they have to do. We're there to accompany and harmonize rather than to take their position. This is for the Commission, but also for the co-legislator, the number one rule. And the number two, we have to capitalize on existing formulas and modus operandi. I will just use the example of the European Space Agency. We had the occasion to discuss in the first phase of the negotiations. The European Space Agency objectively is there in order to support the proper implementation of the Space Act, and we have to welcome them in this process. So, nothing more, nothing less from this ambition, and the way to go ahead with a great process already, and we are thankful that the presidency, the Danish presidency, they did objectively an excellent work. Because we have to admit, the Commission's proposal was big and complex, and they tackled it in a way that I have to say, not ignore, but at least distinguish between the noises, a lot of noises and interference, and the real signals, the real messages. And really a big thank you to the Danish presidency for their compromise text. And now we are under the Cypriot presidency, and they committed to work with the same pace and the same motivation. In parallel, the European Parliament, and I really agree that we have excellent cooperation with the rapporteur, will be in a position somewhere in spring to come with the first report, and towards the end of the year at the plenary. So a lot of work ahead of us, but something that we have to do and something that we own to everybody, and first of all to our companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekaterini. You are known as a strong defender of European vision on space. You confirmed it also because you made many good points. Of course, with the 132 articles of Space Act, there is lots to say. So I would just underline what looks like a wise approach to the competencies of member state and co-legislator. Also consider that standards are not only a technical issue, they're a political issue and an industrial issue. So the point on technology neutral, not reinventing the wheel, is really, really interesting. And your point on the toolbox for industry leads me very easily to our next speaker, Mr. Kaspar. Pardon. Many stakeholders already did emphasize the need for the EU Space Act to support competitiveness, innovation, and not only safety, resilience, and sustainability. So my question is, how can we strike the right balance between the necessary regulation, we already talked about proportionality, and the feasibility, the enabling aspect, particularly for smaller actors, SMEs, startups, and new companies?
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The balance, what you mentioned, is the, I think, main word which we need to have in the mind. I would like to start with the history, yeah, because at the first half of the last century, we developed rules for surface transportation. In the second half, we developed rules for the aviation, and then we are developing rules for the space. I think that this is a logical step. We need it. We need it, and European space law is a very good fundament how to develop all aspects of the space, use of space, also on the ground. So from my point of view, as a representative of the Association of European Space Research Establishments, we are supporting European Space Act, and we will do our best to develop the parts or side documents which are not inside. And this is crucial, because there is not mentioned competitiveness, there is no research, there is no innovation. There is rules how to build the structure, organizational structure, how to in the space organizations in the European countries. There is about space debris, about cybersecurity, about part of the Green Deal. This is okay, this is perfect. But with some influence of the research development and small and medium enterprises, startups, and companies which are smart and smarter than bigger companies in Europe. We need to support them. Yes, there is a lot of exemptions for this type of the companies in the European space law, but I would like to ask for more work as a side effect to prepare some supporting programs to develop not only technologies but also organizational support, because there is also mentioned that each country will have the office which will be responsible for the part of this. This same situation is in the aviation. So today I see that we need a very good time schedule for the implementation of the space law, and also we need additional supportive actions which will do the best things for the goals of the European Space Act. Also, I would like to mention that this is perfect, how to say, first jump, because we can be example for the rest of the world, because the space is for all of us, and we will need also the cooperation with other main stakeholders in this field, and for this we need some, to say, organizational fundamentals in the Europe. So now we are supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First, to underline somehow what the Space Act lacks in terms of innovation, or let's say how it should be complemented by other leverages of the European Union. And also, I'm really happy to have this voice regarding the needs, also needs of support by SME and startups, because I feel they are sometimes overlooked in a space landscape where it's easier to talk with the prime contractors and the larger companies. Now, your first round of comments stimulated further questions. So let's try to have, again, a brief round of, let's say, 4 minutes each, and I'm looking particularly at Ekaterini. So, Elena, from your perspective, what are the most important objectives that the Space Act must reach in practice, in the reality, to be considered as a success?
Okay, a success is not to, in my opinion, my statement, my commitment, not to make the same mistake as Europe made with automotive. So we need to be realistic, practice. We need to build a market, so to create a market, to facilitate, to incentivize. In the Space Act, there is no mention about fund, but we are talking about now, we are discussing about MFF. And this morning, Katareva was here to say there is also Horizon, because Europe has a story in research. So how to create, the success is to create, to incentivize and to facilitate a market for our company. This is a statement, and now we have to go on the field and to make something more clear about what our rules for SMEs and mid-caps and startups, because we have champions like Leonardo, big one, that is important to be supported in the European field, but we need to have also the backbone of our economy, and we have to build an ecosystem for our mid-caps, small and medium enterprises, because they are able now to be very fast in innovation, in creativity. So this is important to defend them. Second, the main topic now for me is how we consider sustainability in the Space Act, because we have many problems about debris and traffic and so on. We have expertise, as I mentioned, with ESA, but I know that in another committee, not mine, I am the vice chair in ITRE, but in other committees, the topic is discussed in a very ideological way. I'm very concerned about it. So we need to have a clear rule and simple rule, affordable, meaningful for companies. Because also sustainability, if it is written in a good way and the direction is correct, could be an opportunity for European companies. Otherwise, if you write in a very different way, as I mentioned, automotive, we will end killing up our competitiveness. So the fact is how to create, and I end when, as I started, how can we create a very facilitation with our companies in the market. And as I done the last year, I end with a sentence in Latin. It is my favorite language, no, not English. In media start virtus. So we have to balance. We have to keep calm when we are talking about some issue, because if we are self-regulated ourselves, we have the risk to self-punish our companies, and we have not the time, as Ekaterini said.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. I mean, not making the same mistake of automotive, it's a bold political statement. It's a political, it's a cultural statement. But to some extent, I mean, the space community is embedded in the broader in the broader industrial policy of the European Union and industrial reality. So I found it interesting also to connect the very technical conversation within the space community to the broader trends. Ekaterini, following on your previous comments about the Space Act with respect to Europe or within Europe, I wanted you, if possible, to elaborate more on what's your take about let's say, the attractiveness, the appeal, the way the EU Space Act presents to international partners. And I know this is a kind of Pandora box.
No, not at all. I'm not an international partner, I'm a European. So I will talk from the safe side, but with a lot of conviction. Before going to the Space Act, let's stay for a second to the internal market, if it is attractive or not. And I think that everybody here could concur with my position that the European internal market in general, is one of the biggest, well-established markets in the world. We are a powerhouse. And I think that everybody, non-European, would like to make business in Europe. So, per se, the internal market is attractive. So the objective of the Space Act is to strengthen this attractiveness. And I think this is your question, how we will not make them to run away because they want to stay here. I know that there are a number of people reading newspapers, the X or other platforms, and they try to have their own opinion. But I will share with you more than an opinion. I will share with you 4 pillars that will make the Space Act another driver for non-Europeans to come and make business in Europe. And that is very close to a common sense, if I start with the first pillar. If our objective is to establish a stable, uniform, with legal certainty and predictability market, you can't imagine that this is music in the ears of each and every investor, European or non-European, of each and every space operator, European or non-European. So the win-win situation for the Europeans stemming from this Space Act definitely will have an impact to the non-Europeans. It's not the same for an American or somebody from India, considering that we had a great trade deal today, to come in Europe and face 27 different regimes. He will be lost. not in translation, but also in operations, rather than to have a uniform. The second area where we can really strengthen the internal market through the Space Act is simply the fact of the principle of level playing field. When we said it as Europeans, we have always the reading of a European company, that we will not create a competitive disadvantage vis-à-vis the non-Europeans, considering that they will apply the same rules. But if we spend a second and this level playing field principle, we try to have a reading for non-Europeans, we understand that in their mind, in their eyes, in their ears, this is simple, fair treatment and non-discrimination, because they will come and they will have to go along with the same rules and the same requirements that we apply to our industry. And our industrial partners, they know exactly how difficult it is to go to another nation and be treated in the same way. So you understand that the equal footing, it is an advantage for them. The third pillar is the fact that the Space Act is conceived and designed to promote the international partnerships. So we invite companies coming from third countries to promote a more structural cooperation between the Union and its member states and this third country. We go ahead with the possibility to conclude international agreements. We can have a mutual recognition of our systems or equivalent scheme. And I have to say that during the last months that we negotiate or have a dialogue to be more concrete and clear with third countries, we see how much they appreciate this international dimension of the Space Act. And last but not least, very important, it's not a legal perception, but it's more a political flavor. They consider that these third nations, they are part of the process. Why? Because we have an active listening approach. We talk to them. We are open. We are transparent. We would like to get their feedback, because if it is a constructive feedback, even if we receive criticism, but real criticism and not noises, then it will help the process, and it will help us to realign and go on the way that it could be beneficial to them and to us. So this is, in a nutshell, and I hope that I respected the 4 minutes, the way that we consider the Space Act will be an added value to our relations with third countries and make our internal market more secure, but also more attractive.
Thank you, Ekaterina. 4 minutes, 4 pillars. I'm not going to repeat them. I'm just to say it looks like the facade of a Greek temple with 4 pillars. So let's hope they're really solid.
I'm Greek, so
I know. I know. Josef, as space technologies and uses continue to evolve pretty fast, in your view, or in the view of the enterprises and establishment you represent, how the EU Space Act can remain adaptable over time so that the framework remains relevant and it keeps to be aligned with Europe's long-term interest?
I think that today no book of rules is written in the stones. So the Space Act is, as I mentioned, the fundamental rules, book of rules, and as you mentioned, technologies are developing rapidly than the laws. So there is important to be in touch with the research organizations and with also other stakeholders, startups which are in front of the technologies, and to be prepared to react in the European rules to change something for the better usage of the environment and technologies. We see, of course, today very big movement in the United States with the Elon Musk companies because they are not talking about the rules, they are doing things and then they are changing rules. So we need something similar also in Europe. Of course, this is much more complicated because there is a lot of nations with different development of the knowledge about space, about technology. So we need some coordination. We have a lot of associations and other bodies on the European level which can help this approach and which can help to, how to say, see the future of the technologies better than politicians and people which are writing the laws. So from my side, also as is mentioned in the European space law, there is a structure of national organizations which will be coordinated by some centralized European body. This is the important structure for coordination of the things which we will did in this sense.
Thank you, Joseph, also for stressing the forward-looking attitude of those developing the technologies, which is something that in a dialogue with the co-legislators and the European Commission, it's truly important when legislation such that has such a very high degree of technology impact. Please.
Let me mention some example. Probably you know about the new aviation field which is focused on urban air mobility. There is no rule in Europe, and the companies which are building this special aviation things are communicating with the regulation body, and they are moving the borders of the rules to do it. Yeah, but it's slow.
Ekaterini, 2 fingers.
Just to add something very important, and thanks for mentioning it. If we want to go ahead with a sustainable Space Act for the decades to come and the years to come, we need to go ahead with a very simple model that strikes the right balance between something which should be solid, but also dynamic and flexible. And the way that we structure it is exactly that, to have a solid framework of rules, in particular processes and governance, that they have to stay there for decades, because it's the predictability that we said, while on the other side, we need a set of flexibility, the technical rules, able in an easy way to be adapted and serve the companies the day that they need to be served. So this is the model that we try to propose, and this is why the Space Act will not be finished the day that will be adopted, and we hope that this will be the next year, but it will be a live instrument, dynamic, and always based on consultation of all stakeholders, being the member states, the European Parliament, industry, big and small, give the dynamic and the power that it should have. Thank you.
Thank you. Our speakers have been very diligent. We have 40 seconds. I will just ask to each person one key word on the EU Space Act. Just one key word. Elena.
Simplification.
Ekaterini.
Reality.
Josef.
Innovation.
Thank you very much. So many thanks for